There are nights when your home feels alive, but not with peace. You walk from room to room, and the air feels heavier than usual. You can't name it, but you feel it, that invisible pressure behind the silence. You clean, you pray, you try to distract yourself, but something still lingers, something you can't describe. The corners feel darker, even your breath feels slower, and deep down, your soul whispers, something unseen is watching. The old Sufi masters used to say, when remembrance leaves a home, heaviness takes its place, because every wall, every breath of air, carries memory. When dhikr fades, the soul of your home begins to cry for Allah. That's why some nights you feel sadness for no reason, why arguments happen for no reason, why the home feels tense even when everyone's quiet. You're not imagining it. It's a sign that your home has been waiting for remembrance to return. But tonight, Allah has given you a secret older than books, simpler than rituals, and more powerful than any charm. He hid it in the earth, in salt, the silent guardian of purity, and in mint, the breath of renewal. These are not spells, they are symbols. They remind the soul that what Allah created pure can purify what forgetfulness has darkened. When salt touches mint, something begins to shift, not outside of you, but within you. Because peace does not return through hands, it returns through intention, through the whisper of a heart that says, Ya Allah, return your light to this home. Before you begin, sit in stillness. Feel the weight that has been living in your air. And then remember, you are not fighting evil. You are inviting light. Tonight isn't about removing darkness. It's about calling the angels back. And as the salt meets mint, as your home fills with that soft fragrance, the unseen begins to move. Angels descend quietly. Peace begins to walk again through your rooms. Your chest feels lighter, your thoughts calm, because the entire world listens. When one servant says with sincerity, "Come back, my Lord, this home remembers you." But listen closely. This isn't a story about ingredients. It's a story about remembrance. Because by the end of this night, you'll realize the truth that the saints guarded for centuries. It was never the salt. It was never the mint. It was always the remembrance that called him back. And when he returns, every shadow knows where to go. Slow, pause, breath of silence. Stay until the end. Because what you're about to feel is not superstition, it's awakening. It's the night your home remembers who its Lord is. The night Allah invites light back into your home. There are nights when the silence inside your house feels heavier than any noise. You can almost hear it breathing, a slow, tired breath that carries years of things left unsaid. You walk from room to room, trying to understand what's wrong. Everything looks fine, but it doesn't feel fine. The air hangs thick, as if the walls are holding their breath. You open the window. A cool wind enters, but peace does not. You switch on a lamp. The light spreads, but warmth does not. You clean the shelves, fold the blanket, straighten the prayer mat. Yet a strange uneasiness follows you from corner to corner. It is in that moment that Allah begins to call you back. Not through thunder, not through visions, but through a subtle discomfort that no comfort can fix. It is His mercy disguised as restlessness. It is His way of saying, something sacred inside your home is waiting for remembrance. Every home has a soul. When its people pray, it glows. When gratitude fills its air, it hums softly with light. But when voices grow harsh, when laughter forgets reverence, when tears fall without turning toward Him, the walls begin to dim. You can feel it when you sit alone. It's not fear, exactly. It's absence, the kind of emptiness that makes you sigh without knowing why. Allah lets you feel it not to punish you, but to remind you. You were meant to live in light. You think of all that has happened, the arguments, the long nights of worry, the heaviness that never quite leaves your chest. You realize that perhaps the problem isn't outside, it's in the air of your own space. So tonight, Allah places a thought in your heart, a simple, almost whisper-like idea. Clean this home in my name, not because the floor is dusty, but because the unseen needs peace again. You walk to the kitchen quietly. You find what He Himself placed in the earth for you, 2 humble creations that carry hidden wisdom. Salt, ancient, patient, pure, mint fresh, living, fragrant. They sit there as ordinary things, but tonight they feel sacred. You hold them gently in your palms. You notice their simplicity, no color of gold, no fragrance of luxury, yet something about them feels alive, as though the earth kept them safe for this moment. Salt, you remember how it purifies water, how it heals wounds, how even the sea carries it endlessly. And you think, if salt can cleanse oceans, perhaps it can cleanse silence too. Mint, you crush a small leaf between your fingers. Its coolness rises instantly. It smells like a beginning. It smells like the first breath after a long cry. You close your eyes for a second, and the 2 scents, clean earth and living leaf, mingle in the air. The heaviness shifts ever so slightly. You whisper without words, Ya Allah, let this be the night your light returns. It is not magic. It is faith becoming movement. It is remembrance finding a form your hands can hold. You take a small bowl, nothing fancy, just what you have. You place the salt inside. The sound of the grains falling is sharp, pure, satisfying. You crush the mint and sprinkle it over the salt. The 2 colors, white and green, rest together like peace and life. You look at it for a long moment. It is still, yet it feels alive, because intention has given it purpose. You stand quietly. The house is silent except for your breathing. You can sense that unseen ears are listening, not of fear, but of reverence. You begin to walk, slowly, each step deliberate, respectful. The bowl in your hand feels warm, though it isn't. That warmth is your own heart awakening. You move through the hallway, past the place where you once argued, past the corner where tears once fell, and you realize how much the space remembers. It remembers laughter, it remembers anger, it remembers silence. So you whisper again, not loudly, just enough for the walls to hear. Forgive us for forgetting you. The heaviness answers by loosening a little. The air moves. It's as though the house itself exhales. You reach the living room. You take a pinch of the salt mint mixture and let it fall. It hits the ground softly, like small raindrops of light. You watch them scatter and disappear. Something inside you stirs a calm curiosity. You don't understand what's happening, but you feel a quiet assurance. Allah has heard you. You move to another room, the one where you often sit late at night, scrolling through your phone, trying to fill the emptiness. Tonight, you don't pick up the phone. You stand still, close your eyes, and remember that this very space has been patient with you. How many times did it watch you cry? How many nights did it watch you lose hope? And yet, it never left. It waited for you to invite the one who never leaves. You sprinkle another pinch. It lands beside your prayer mat. For a moment, the scent of mint catches in the air again, fresh, clean, forgiving. You breathe it in and feel your chest loosen. The anxious rhythm of your heart slows down. You whisper again, not words, but meaning. A soft prayer made of longing. Return peace to this place, my Lord. And somewhere in the unseen, light begins to move. Angels step quietly through the door you never opened for them before. They don't need permission. Your sincerity called them. They go where His name is remembered, and they stand where hearts seek forgiveness. You may not see them, but their presence changes the air. It becomes lighter, easier to breathe. You find yourself smiling for no reason. Your shoulders relax. You realize this is what it means. When Allah invites light back into your home, it doesn't crash in suddenly like sunlight. It seeps in slowly, like dawn. One corner after another begins to soften. The echoes of old arguments lose their power. Even the quiet feels peaceful again. It's not superstition. It's mercy, responding to remembrance. You keep walking. Your steps are lighter now. The same rooms that felt strange a moment ago now feel almost familiar, almost forgiving. You notice how your breath aligns with your movement. You are not cleansing with salt and mint. You are cleansing with awareness. Because Allah loves when His servant remembers Him in small, sincere ways. When a simple act becomes worship, when an ordinary night becomes sacred. You understand now. This act was never about the ingredients. It was about you choosing peace over neglect. It was about saying, "This home belongs to Allah." You reach your doorway. You pause and look around. The bowl in your hand is nearly empty, but your heart feels full. The air feels different, lighter, clearer. It's as though the house is breathing again. The silence is no longer heavy. It's gentle. It wraps around you like safety. You sit down for a moment, the bowl still in your hands, and tears start to gather, not of sadness, but of recognition. You realize how long you've been away from this calm, how long your home waited for you to remember, and how kind Allah is to send such a small act, to open such a big door. You whisper, trembling but smiling, "My Lord, you were always near. I just forgot to notice." And it feels like something answers, not in sound, but in stillness. A reassurance fills the air. You remembered me, and I have remembered you. You bow your head, not out of habit but gratitude. For the first time in months, maybe years, your house feels alive, and you understand now why Sufis say light doesn't just live in the sky. It lives wherever Allah is remembered. Salt, the earth's silent guardian. Salt looks simple, tiny, colorless grains scattered across your palm. Nothing royal, nothing precious. Yet, within that quiet whiteness hides a secret older than any human. Every crystal of salt was once a drop of the ancient seas, washed, crushed, and buried deep within the earth's heart. When Allah commanded the oceans to move, salt was born in their tears, and since then, it has remembered the sound of His command. That is why, even now, salt still obeys. It purifies everything it touches: water, wounds, even the air itself. Because the very first thing salt ever learned was obedience. When you hold it in your hand, you are holding a fragment of the earth's first submission. That is what makes it sacred. Salt doesn't speak, yet it remembers. It doesn't shine, yet it protects. It doesn't ask to be noticed, yet it saves everything from decay. In the silence of its grains lies a lesson for the human heart. Be small but pure. Be quiet but powerful. Obey and you will heal. The Prophet once taught us that salt has cure for many illnesses. But the saints who walked after him discovered another kind of cure. A cure not for the body, but for the atmosphere around it. When people forget to remember their Lord, the air around them begins to feel heavy. The rooms they live in begin to lose peace. They said, "Bring salt, sprinkle a little. Whisper the name of the one who made purity itself." Because salt has always known how to listen. It doesn't argue with energy. It absorbs it. It doesn't fight darkness with violence. It dissolves it through remembrance. Imagine each grain of salt as a tiny listener. When you hold it and you whisper with faith, those grains carry your whisper deeper than you think. They move unseen, quieting what was loud, balancing what was broken. You may think you're just sprinkling powder, but the unseen world sees something else. A servant using what his Lord made to invite peace back into creation. That is why, in Sufi lodges, salt was always kept near the entrance. Every guest who entered was offered a small taste, not for flavor, but for blessing. A reminder that the first thing to touch your tongue should be something that remembers Allah, because anything that remembers Him reminds you of yourself. Salt is the earth's oldest form of dhikr. Even when no one sees it, it keeps repeating what it learned: be pure. And that repetition radiates through everything around it. Think about it. When food lacks salt, it tastes incomplete. When water lacks minerals, it feels empty. When a home lacks remembrance, it feels the same. Salt completes balance, not by adding sweetness or spice, but by restoring what is natural. And that is what remembrance does to your life. It doesn't always change the scene. It restores the balance inside it. The Sufis used to say, salt has no fragrance, no color, no sound, yet no meal is complete without it. So too is the remembrance of Allah. Unseen, quiet, but without it, the soul starves. They believed salt carried invisible light, the kind that doesn't dazzle but steadies, the kind that keeps food from rotting and hearts from rusting. Have you noticed how the ocean never grows filthy? Storms may rage, ships may sink, but the water always returns clear, because the salt within it never forgets its purpose. That's why, when you sprinkle salt with sincerity, you are not adding something new to the world. You are simply reminding it of what it already knows: to be clean, to be calm, to be loyal to its creator. In old villages, mothers would sweep their floors and then toss a pinch of salt over their shoulders. People laughed and called it superstition, but for those women, it was not magic, it was prayer. They didn't read complicated books of theology. They knew that sometimes the purest remembrance is done through the simplest things. As they cleaned, they whispered softly, "May peace stay here, may anger leave." And they let the salt carry those words into the unseen. Salt doesn't boast, but it works faithfully. It melts quietly. It leaves nothing behind but balance. That's why the friends of Allah loved it, because it reminded them of sincerity. Be like salt, they said, invisibly, but essential, silent but healing, present but humble. When your home feels heavy, take a small handful of salt. Look at it, really look. Notice how it glitters when light touches it, like thousands of tiny mirrors reflecting purity. Hold it in your palm for a moment and think, if these silent grains can purify water, can they not, by Allah's will, purify the air in this home too? And as that thought blooms, something inside you softens, because faith begins where logic ends. You walk through your home slowly, letting a few grains fall in quiet corners, not as a ritual, but as an act of remembrance. Each pinch becomes a prayer without words. Protect this place, calm this heart, replace the unseen with light. And as you do, the unseen listens. Not because salt has power, but because obedience does. You are joining creation in remembering its creator. The walls listen, the air listens, even the silence listens, and all of it responds to the same call, to purify. If you could see what happens then, you would cry from gratitude. For, in the unseen, light begins to thread itself through the air, like fine golden threads weaving back the peace that was lost. The heaviness that clung to your home begins to loosen. The corners that once felt cold begin to warm, and your own breath, once restless, begins to slow. Because when you used salt with faith, you gave it permission to do what it was created for: to cleanse, to guard, to obey. In that moment, you are reminded of yourself. You too were created to obey, to guard, to cleanse, to be a silent guardian of goodness wherever you live. Salt teaches you that you don't need to be loud to be powerful. You don't need to be noticed to make a difference. You just need to stay pure, even when the world dissolves around you. And just like salt disappears into water but changes it completely, so does sincerity disappear from the world's eyes, while transforming the unseen reality. You realize now that these grains are teachers. They do not preach, they demonstrate. They show what humility looks like. They dissolve completely, and in dissolving, they fulfill their purpose. That's the beauty of obedience. It asks for no recognition, yet it brings balance to everything. If your home feels lifeless, learn from salt. Stay pure, even in smallness. Do your part quietly, and let Allah handle the unseen. Because everything that obeys Him carries light, even something as small as a grain of salt. Mint, the breath of renewal. There is something sacred about scent. You cannot touch it, yet it enters every corner of a room. It reaches the mind before the eyes can focus, and it can change the heart faster than words. Mint was created with that secret. It carries a living freshness, as though each leaf still remembers the first morning of creation. When you touch it, the air around you seems to exhale. When you crush it, its life doesn't end, it spreads. That is why the saints called it the breath of renewal. Pick up a sprig of mint. Look closely at its texture, soft but firm. A green so alive it almost glows. Even before you smell it, it begins to calm you. It has the language of peace, written in veins too small to see. When you inhale its fragrance, your lungs respond like someone remembering how to breathe after sorrow. Every breath feels cleaner, as if something inside you has just been washed. Allah made mint with mercy. Its scent reminds the body of paradise and tells the heart that healing is still possible. In Sufi gatherings, they would burn mint or boil it in water, so the room filled with an invisible serenity. The fragrance entered softly, settling around the believers like a gentle robe of calm. People who came burdened left lighter, not because the herb was magic, but because its purity invited remembrance. Mint doesn't shout, it whispers, and remembrance always prefers whispering hearts. Think of what it means when something smells fresh. It means decay has been pushed away. It means life has returned. It means what was still has begun to move again. That is what renewal truly is. Not the creation of something new, but the awakening of what was already there, sleeping under sorrow, waiting for a scent to remind it of home. Every time you bring mint into your house, you bring with it that memory of life. Even if your walls are old, even if your heart feels tired, one small leaf can change the air, because air carries emotion. When people argue, the air thickens. When they pray, it clears. And when you let the fragrance of mint drift through it, it becomes a messenger of ease. Imagine walking through a garden at dawn. The grass is still wet, the wind is cool, and then, suddenly, the scent of mint brushes past you. You stop, you breathe, and without meaning to, you smile. That tiny moment is the entire lesson of mint. Stop, breathe, remember. Every breath you take is proof that Allah is still sustaining you. Every scent of life is a reminder that nothing is truly gone, only waiting for His permission to bloom again. Mint teaches patience. It grows in corners where sunlight barely reaches. It doesn't demand much, just a little soil, a little water, and time. Yet it spreads, quietly, persistently. It shows the believer how to live. Stay rooted, even when forgotten. Stay fragrant, even when stepped on. And when life crushes you, release your scent instead of your complaint. Because mint's secret is this: the more it is crushed, the stronger its fragrance becomes. That is how the saints understood hardship. They said, when Allah allows you to be pressed by life, it is so that your hidden fragrance may rise. Mint is the teacher of resilience. It turns pain into perfume. It turns stillness into breath. It turns survival into beauty. Bring it into your home, not only as a plant, but as a reminder. Place it near the window. Let its fragrance greet the morning light. And whenever you pass by, breathe deeply and say in your heart, this is how renewal feels. You are not worshiping the herb. You are worshiping through wonder. You are acknowledging the mercy that hides in small things. Mint's color itself is a sermon. Green, the color of life, of Jannah, of peace. It is the hue of contentment, the shade that tells the eyes to rest. It is the bridge between soil and sky, between what grows and what breathes. No wonder the beloved messenger loved green. It carries the vibration of balance. Mint is green in spirit as well as in sight. When you combine salt with mint, you join the earth's stillness with the air's breath. Salt grounds you, mint lifts you. One reminds you of humility, the other of hope. Together, they create equilibrium, a home that neither sinks in sadness nor floats in heedlessness. This is why the Sufis used both. They understood that a believer must be both earth and wind, grounded in worship, breathing in renewal. If you could listen closely to a mint leaf in the quiet of night, you would hear the softest remembrance, the sound of creation, still praising its maker. Every leaf that waves in the breeze is saying, "I am alive because he wills me to be." And when you let that leaf share its scent with your home, you are allowing the same praise to enter your walls. That is why homes that remember Allah often smell like gardens. There is another secret. Mint cools what burns. It soothes fever, calms heat, softens thirst. Spiritually, it cools anger too. It reminds the heart that mercy feels better than revenge. When you breathe mint after argument, you are breathing forgiveness. You are telling your body, peace tastes better. Sometimes the smallest act can break the cycle of heaviness. A cup of hot water with a few mint leaves, steam rising, carrying fragrance. You sit, you breathe, and suddenly you feel lighter because you have returned to presence. Mint connects you back to yourself, and through yourself to Allah. If salt is the earth's silent guardian, then mint is its living breath. Where one protects, the other revives. Where one absorbs, the other releases. They are companions, like patience and gratitude. One helps you endure, the other helps you rejoice. One cleanses, the other inspires. And both remind you that balance is mercy. Your heart, too, needs that balance. Some days, you need the strength of salt discipline, firmness, protection. Other days, you need the softness of mint ease, laughter, renewal. When Allah brings both into your life, He is teaching you how to live in harmony. So tonight, when you prepare that small bowl, don't rush it. Touch the mint gently. Let its fragrance fill the air before you begin. Let it announce, peace has returned. As the scent travels, you'll notice something subtle. Even the corners of your home begin to breathe again. The rooms that once felt heavy now feel open. The air carries softness, as if the unseen has exhaled with you. That is not imagination. It is renewal arriving silently, as mercy often does. Mint is not merely a plant. It is a reminder that every believer can bloom again, no matter how long winter has stayed. It is Allah's gentle message, hidden in fragrance. I can make anything fresh again, even you. The intention that unlocks barakah. Every blessing that enters your life walks through one invisible door, intention. You cannot see it, but Allah sees through it. Your hands may move, your lips may speak, your body may act, but what He looks at is the quiet reason behind it all. There are people who do the same act, yet one receives light, while the other receives nothing. The difference is not in the action. The difference is in the heart that carried it. That is why every Sufi says, if your intention is pure, even dust becomes dhikr. When you mix the salt and mint, when you walk through your home, sprinkling that small bowl, it isn't the movement that brings barakah, it's the meaning behind it. If you do it only to test something strange, it remains ordinary. But if you do it whispering, Ya Allah, let this be a sign of my remembrance, then every grain turns into light. Barakah doesn't come from what the hand holds. It flows from what the heart means. Think of how rain falls. Every drop looks the same, but not every drop becomes a flower. Only those that fall on ready soil bring life. Intention is that soil. Without it, even pure rain evaporates. With it, even a single drop can awaken a garden. There was once a man who cleaned his house every Friday. He swept, he mopped, he burned incense. But he did it only because he liked the smell. Next door lived another man who cleaned the same way, but before he touched the broom, he would say, "This is my worship. My Lord loves purity." The first man had cleanliness. The second man had barakah. Allah doesn't count how many times you act. He measures how much sincerity breathes inside the act. That is why the smallest things, a smile, a sip, a breath, can become worship, if the intention behind them carries remembrance. You can pour water for someone and earn reward. You can pour the same water without meaning and earn nothing. The world judges the motion. Allah judges the motive. When you hold that bowl of salt and mint tonight, pause for a moment before you move. Look at your hands. Ask yourself, why am I doing this? Not because you fear evil, not because you expect miracles, but because you want your home to remember its creator again. That one thought alone transforms a small act into a prayer that angels record. Intention is like fragrance. You can't see it, but everything around you feels its presence. A clean heart can fill a room even in silence, and a dark heart can make the brightest place feel dim. So when you prepare to cleanse your home, first, cleanse your reason. Tell yourself, this is not about removing shadows. It is about welcoming light. Barakah loves sincerity. It follows people who act quietly, those who don't announce their goodness, those who move because their heart trembled when they remembered Allah. Such people never need to chase blessings. Blessings chase them because Allah said, "When my servant remembers me in private, I remember him in the gathering of angels." Intention is the seed. Action is the soil. Barakah is the flower. If your seed is false, your garden will dry, no matter how often you water it. But if your seed is real, if your heart beats only to please Him, then even drought cannot kill what you planted. Look at how mint grows. A small stem, a little green, yet it multiplies endlessly. Because it doesn't compete, it simply continues. That is the way of sincere intention, quiet, steady, unstoppable. Barakah does not fall on loudness. It falls on consistency. The kind that whispers, "I am doing this only for you, my Lord." When your intention is pure, Allah orders creation to assist you. You may not see it, but doors begin to open. Words come at the right time, opportunities cross your path, and peace begins to guard you from unseen corners. That is what barakah feels like. Not only increase, but ease. Things don't just multiply, they flow. A small amount becomes enough. A small space begins to feel vast. A single prayer begins to echo louder than 100 distracted ones. Before every act, pause. Not long, just one heartbeat of awareness. Whisper in your soul, "I am doing this for the one who sees me, even when no one else does." That small whisper opens a gate between heaven and your moment. You don't have to understand how. You just have to mean it. The Sufis said, "An act done without intention is a body without a soul." And they were right. Without intention, your action stands hollow. It looks like faith, but it doesn't breathe. But when intention enters, the act gains a pulse. It starts living. It begins to glow in the unseen. Think of your home now. Maybe it's simple, maybe it's small. But if your intention is pure, angels fill every inch. They don't look for marble floors. They look for sincerity. And when they find it, they stay. That is the secret of barakah. It lives where sincerity lives. As you sprinkle that salt and mint, feel the weight of meaning in your heart. Each grain, each leaf is a word of your soul saying, "My Lord, this act is for you alone." The unseen responds. The atmosphere begins to shift. You feel calm, and you don't know why. That is barakah, arriving, quiet, invisible, complete, the act is small. The effect is vast, because what fuels it isn't the size of your effort, it's the depth of your reason. When Allah loves an intention, He tells His angels to honor it, and when the angels honor it, the universe rearranges itself to make room for your peace. Barakah is not only in wealth, it is in time, in relationships, in rest. Some people have little but live in abundance. Others have much but live in emptiness. The first group understood intention. The second group only understood effort. When you align your effort with remembrance, your days stretch, your burdens lighten, and even waiting feels like worship. You realize now that barakah was never missing from your life. It was only waiting for sincerity to open the gate. The moment you stop doing things for people, the moment you start doing them for Allah, the flow begins again. Your prayer feels sweeter. Your work feels meaningful. Your home feels alive. That is the scent of pure intention. It turns ordinary hours into sacred time. And so, tonight, as you hold that simple bowl, you finally understand. You were never mixing salt and mint. You were mixing faith and purpose. And when faith and purpose meet, Allah writes your act into eternity, the real source of darkness. There are moments when you can feel night, even while the sun is shining. You sit among people. Laughter fills the room, yet something inside you feels dim. It isn't the weather. It isn't the walls. It's something unseen that has quietly spread through your world. Darkness never falls all at once. It begins softly, like dust settling after a busy day. A little anger here, a little jealousy there, a promise broken, a prayer delayed, a word said without care. Each small shadow joins another, and before you realize it, light has less space to live. Every home, every heart, has two kinds of lamps, one made of glass and one made of faith. The glass one lights your eyes, the faithful one lights your soul. When the faithful lamp burns low, everything looks normal but feels wrong. You may clean, you may rearrange furniture, but peace refuses to stay because the true lamp is empty. It hasn't been fed with remembrance. It hasn't been visited by gratitude. It hasn't heard Alhamdulillah in days. That is how darkness begins. Not from demons in the corners, but from forgetfulness in the heart. Darkness loves forgetfulness. It waits quietly until you stop remembering who gave you breath. It moves in when you argue too long, when pride wins, when you close your eyes to the blessings still around you. And Allah, in His mercy, lets you feel that darkness. Not to punish you, but to make you search for the light again. Imagine a home filled with harsh words. No matter how many lights you switch on, something still feels cold. Because light from electricity can't replace the light from sincerity. Every unkind word dims the walls a little. Every complaint steals warmth from the air. Every sin whispered in secret hangs in the space until someone remembers Allah again. The real source of darkness isn't outside. It's the distance between your heart and your Lord. When you turn back, even slightly, the air begins to change. You can feel it. The stillness breaks. The soul breathes. That's because Allah never lets darkness win for long. He created night only so you would appreciate dawn. In old Sufi teachings, they said, evil cannot stay where hearts keep remembering. The moment you remember sincerely, even whisper His name in exhaustion, something shifts. It's like lighting a candle in a cave. It may be small, but the shadows move back. Think of how a storm gathers. It doesn't come from nowhere. It forms from neglected clouds. Likewise, the storms of the unseen gather from neglected hearts. Anger left unspoken, guilt left unhealed, envy left unchecked. These are the winds that create spiritual weather. Soon, you find yourself restless for no reason, irritable, without cause, unable to enjoy what you once loved. That is your soul telling you. The darkness isn't around you, It's within you. But Allah is gentle. He sends signs before He sends storms. He lets the heaviness press on you, so you'll notice it. He makes the silence louder, so you'll ask, "Where did the peace go?" What? And when you ask, the answer always whispers back, "It left when you stopped talking to Him." So the cure is simple, not loud, not complex, just remembrance, just repentance, just returning. When you whisper, "Forgive me," light begins to move again. You can't see it, but the unseen world does. The angels who once stepped back return. The walls that felt heavy begin to breathe. Because wherever Allah is remembered, darkness has no permission to stay. You learn then that the world itself mirrors the soul. If your home feels dim, your heart needs cleansing. If your heart feels dim, your tongue needs remembrance. If your tongue feels silent, your prayer needs humility. It's all connected. The outside only reflects the inside. So, when you start to clean your space, when you light a candle, open a window, sprinkle salt and mint, understand what you're truly doing. You are cleaning your reflection. You are saying to Allah, "Remove what I allowed to gather." Every time you remember Him, something unseen remembers you. The darkness begins to thin, like fog lifting after dawn prayer. And the light you feel isn't new. It was always there, waiting for your permission to return. Because Allah never turns away first. We do. He never closes the door. We walk out of it. But the moment we knock again, He opens instantly. The saints used to say, if your home feels heavy, start with gratitude. Thankfulness is light in disguise. It burns quietly but completely. When you say, "Thank you, my Lord," even for small things, the breath, the bread, the roof, you pour oil into that inner lamp. Soon, the shadows that frightened you shrink to nothing. You realize they were never real. They were reflections of your own neglect. That's the mercy of Allah. He doesn't shame you for the darkness. He teaches you through it. He lets you walk through night so that when morning comes, you value the light differently. He shows you that darkness cannot exist on its own. It only survives where light has been forgotten. So, when you remember again, the night doesn't need to leave. It simply transforms. Because for the believer, even night becomes worship. You see, the real source of darkness isn't jinn or evil eye. Those are only visitors. They can't stay unless you host them. And the heart that stops remembering becomes their invitation. But a heart that constantly calls upon Allah is a fortress they cannot enter. They hover at the gates, but never cross. And that is what it means to live in light. To let remembrance become your walls, your windows, your doors. When you speak kindly, light enters. When you forgive, light deepens. When you smile with sincerity, light spreads. And when you remember Allah alone at night, light crowns you unseen. Darkness cannot compete with that. It is outnumbered before it begins. So when you sense heaviness again, don't run from it. Use it as a reminder. Ask yourself, what have I forgotten to thank Him for? That single question turns heaviness into healing. Because the moment you look for gratitude, you look for Allah. And where you look for Him, you find Him. Darkness is simply absence. It has no power except what we give it. The true battle isn't outside, it's between remembering and forgetting. Every time you remember, you win. Every time you forget, the night grows a little longer. But Allah never lets it stay that way forever. He writes in His mercy, "After every night, there is dawn." The night that once frightened you becomes your classroom. It teaches what comfort never could. It shows you how fragile peace can be when you forget who sends it. Every heavy hour you ever lived was Allah calling you softly, "Come back to the light you left behind." You begin to see patterns. Every time you drift away, small shadows return. Impatience, envy, Harsh words, sleepless thoughts. They don't come to destroy you. They come to remind you of what neglect feels like. They are the echo of the heart, saying, "I need cleansing." When you answer that echo with remembrance, they dissolve, not by force, but by permission, because only the one who created night can tell it when to leave. You sit in your home after prayer. No sound but the hum of the world outside. The air feels warmer now. You remember the earlier heaviness, and it feels distant, almost unreal. That is what light does. It doesn't argue with darkness. It simply arrives, and the shadows understand their place. You realize how much of your life has been spent trying to fight darkness with more darkness. Anger against anger, blame against blame. But peace never enters through a locked heart. It walks through open remembrance. When you whisper, "My Lord, guide me," in sincerity, you give the unseen permission to rearrange itself for you. Angels move unseen. Their wings brush the corners of your home, sweeping away the residue of old pain. Your heartbeat slows. Your breathing deepens. You feel the quiet triumph of light returning. This is not imagination. It is the response of creation to the sound of remembrance. The saints used to say that angels travel with fragrance. They arrive where forgiveness has been spoken. They stay where hearts have softened. They leave when arrogance enters. So guard your tone. Guard your words. Speak softly, even to yourself, for harshness invites the same energy it releases. A gentle home begins with a gentle tongue. A gentle soul begins with a grateful one. You remember the times you blamed the world for your sadness, the house, the people, the season, but now you see clearly. The problem was never outside. The problem was the silence inside your heart where praise used to live. That realization is mercy itself, because once you see where the door truly is, you know exactly where to knock. The first time you sincerely thank Allah again, you feel the air answer. It's subtle, like wind shifting direction, but it's real, because gratitude and barakah are twin lights. One calls the other. The more you thank, the easier remembering becomes. And the more you remember, the quicker darkness surrenders. You learn to protect your light. You stop wasting it in arguments that shrink your spirit. You stop letting your mind replay old pain. You start guarding your peace like it's prayer time, because it is. Peace is a kind of prayer. It is the proof that Allah is near. Days pass. The same home that once felt cold now glows in small ways. Morning light enters more freely through the curtains. Your voice sounds calmer when you speak. Even food tastes richer, as though gratitude seasoned it. You laugh again, softly, cleanly. You realize laughter can also be light when it's born from contentment. You notice something else. People around you begin to change. Children argue less. Visitors comment that your home feels peaceful. It's not coincidence. Light spreads. What you heal in yourself touches everything around you. That is how a believer repairs the world. Not by noise, but by purity. Not by debate, but by dhikr. At night, when you stand to pray, you sense that same peace settling behind you. The home that once pressed down on your chest now stands beside you in worship. Its silence has become worship. Even the walls seem to hum softly with presence. You finish your prayer, sit quietly, and whisper, "I understand now," because you do. You understand that the real source of darkness was never jinn, never people. It was the moment you forgot to keep the lamp of gratitude lit. And the cure was never complicated. Just one return, one sincere, "Forgive me," and the night began to break. Now you look at darkness differently. You no longer fear it. You honor it. You know it is a mirror showing you what needs light. When sadness visits, you ask, "What do you want to teach me?" When anger rises, you breathe and say, "You are only here because I forgot to remember." That awareness itself becomes protection. For darkness cannot fool the one who watches his own heart. Every believer will meet shadows, but only the heedless become them. The awakened use them as stairs. Each regret, each sorrow, each pause in faith is a step back toward Allah. You begin to thank Him even for what once scared you, because without those nights, you would never have searched for dawn. The Quran says that Allah brings the living out of the dead and the light out of darkness. You see that miracle now, not in Scripture alone, but in your own life. He brought light out of your neglect. He pulled peace out of your panic. He showed you that even your lowest moment was an invitation to rise. Now, when others speak of evil energy, you smile gently. You tell them, light is stronger. Just remember Him sincerely and watch what happens. Because you've seen it yourself, how one sincere whisper can clear an entire house of heaviness. How one genuine tear can turn a heart of stone into a mirror again. You end the night by standing at your window. The sky is dark, but the darkness no longer feels empty. It feels vast, filled with unseen worship. Stars glitter like verses, and you realize even the night is praising Him. Darkness was never the enemy. It was the canvas on which Allah painted His light. You whisper one last prayer before sleep. Keep my lamp burning, even when I forget. And the angels record it. They hover above your roof until dawn, guarding the home that finally learned where true light begins. Because the real source of darkness is forgetfulness, and the real cure is remembrance. Spiritual hygiene, the forgotten worship. There are kinds of worship that everyone sees. The bowed heads in prayer, the fasts, the charity. And then there is a quieter worship, one almost invisible, the worship of keeping things pure. It begins before words, before the adhan, in the way you touch water, the way you fold a cloth, the way you refuse to let dust gather where you live. Cleanliness was never only about tidiness. It was about remembrance. Every corner of a believer's home carries memory. The mat where you prayed still holds echoes of Amin. The kitchen that feeds the family witnesses gratitude or complaint. The doorway hears every greeting and every sigh. When you clean, you are not only removing dust, you are renewing testimony. You are telling creation again, this space belongs to Allah. The saints used to sweep their rooms after Fajr. They moved the broom slowly, whispering praise with each stroke. One said, "When I sweep my floor, I also sweep my thoughts," because they understood that outer dirt and inner heaviness often arrive together, and both leave through movement done with remembrance. Look at how the world works. Rain washes the earth, winds clear the sky, fire burns what cannot stay, and water keeps returning to the sea. Nothing Allah created remains pure by accident. It stays pure by rhythm. Your life has the same rhythm. Prayer cleanses your time. Forgiveness cleanses your heart. Physical cleaning cleanses your space. Together, they create a cycle of barakah, a living flow that keeps light moving through your days. Imagine entering a room that hasn't been touched for weeks. The air feels thick. Windows are shut. The scent of oldness hides in every corner. Then imagine opening the window, letting sunlight spill in, shaking the curtains, wiping the dust. The air changes. You breathe differently. That moment is what remembrance feels like to the soul. Spiritual hygiene is nothing but opening windows for light. The Prophet loved purity. He taught that Allah is beautiful and loves beauty. Beauty begins with cleanliness, not just polished surfaces, but an atmosphere where mercy can land. Because angels prefer purity. They visit where the air is calm, where prayer leaves its fragrance, where forgiveness has been spoken aloud. That's why your home feels lighter after you tidy it. It isn't only because your eyes see order, it's because the unseen feels welcome again. When you wash dishes with calm, You are washing your impatience. When you sweep the floor, thinking of Allah, each sound of the broom becomes dhikr. When you fold clothes quietly, you fold humility back into your day. These small acts feed your soul the way prayer feeds your faith. They are breaths of worship, disguised as chores. Neglect breeds heaviness. If you let your heart go unwashed by repentance, or your surroundings go untouched by care, you will feel the same dull weight. But once you decide to cleanse, light returns faster than you expect. It's as if Allah has been waiting at the door, and the first sweep of sincerity opens it. Even the act of washing yourself for prayer carries a secret. Water touches skin, but intention touches heaven. Every drop says, I am removing what veiled me. The same truth applies to your home. When you clean with remembrance, you are washing away everything that kept you distracted from Him. You're not only preparing for visitors, you are preparing for angels. Sometimes spiritual dust comes quietly. It arrives through gossip, through laziness, through endless noise that keeps you from reflection. Soon, you start to feel restless in your own space. That's the sign. It's time to cleanse. Not with harshness, with gentleness. Light does not like violence. It likes consistency. Open the windows. Let verses play softly. Let your breath become rhythm again. You'll notice your thoughts clearing too, because your surroundings and your soul always talk to each other. The Sufis would say, the house that forgets to be cleaned forgets to remember. They meant more than sweeping. They meant tending to the details of life with love, filling empty jars, straightening books, watering a plant, wiping a table. Each act of care says, I am grateful for what I have. And gratitude itself is worship. Do you remember the first time you cleaned your home after sorrow? At first, the motion felt heavy. Then, something shifted. The rhythm of washing and organizing began to calm you. By the end, your tears had dried. You didn't plan to heal. You simply moved with purpose. That is spiritual hygiene at work. Healing, hiding, inside, simple motion. When Allah called humans His Khalifa on earth, He gave us the duty to keep creation balanced. Part of that balance is purity. You cannot control the storms, but you can keep your corner of the world clean and remembering. That is enough for angels to find you. They are drawn not to wealth or size, but to purity and sincerity. If your home glows with remembrance, it becomes a small sanctuary. A believer who forgets this starts to live among clutter, not only of objects, but of emotions. Resentment piles up like laundry left too long. Worry gathers like dust. Soon, everything feels cramped. Then one small act of intention, a sweep, a wipe, a prayer, and the whole atmosphere begins to breathe. That is the mercy hidden in cleanliness. The prophet said, cleanliness is half of faith, but the other half is intention. Without intention, cleaning is just habit. With it, it becomes ibadah. So before you begin, whisper in your heart, I am making this place worthy of the peace Allah sends. That one thought changes everything. You'll feel it. The broom feels lighter. The air responds. The act becomes graceful. You are no longer doing it alone. You are doing it with Him, watching lovingly. Sometimes, purity doesn't mean perfection. It means sincerity. It means doing what you can with what you have. A small home kept clean for Allah shines brighter than a palace filled with pride. Because purity is not measured by shine, but by intention. You can see it even in nature. A river keeps itself clean because it keeps moving. A pond that stops flowing begins to rot. Your faith is the same. Keep it moving. Keep it refreshed with small acts every day. That motion itself is protection. You might not always have the strength for long prayers, but you can still maintain purity. You can light a little fragrance and whisper His name. You can arrange your space so it feels respectful of prayer time. You can smile at your family and call it cleanliness of heart. Every small act you do with gentleness becomes a barrier against darkness. Spiritual hygiene is not only for times of crisis, it is for maintenance. Just as you wash daily, you must renew your remembrance daily. Not because Allah forgets, but because we do. The dust of the world settles quickly. The news, the noise, the worries all coat your heart like a thin film. If you ignore it, you stop reflecting light. If you clean it, you shine again. When you finally understand this, you stop separating the sacred from the simple. You stop saying, "This is housework," or "This is worship." You realize they are the same when done with presence. That realization itself is purification, washing away the illusion that only big acts matter. When the angels return, there comes a moment when the air itself begins to change. You don't see wings, you don't hear voices, but you feel something gentle moving through the stillness. A weight lifting, a calm unfolding. That is how the angels return. They don't arrive with thunder or flashes of light. They return in the quiet that follows your remembrance. They come on the rhythm of your breathing after prayer, on the whisper that leaves your lips when you say, "I missed you, my Lord." All this time you thought you were alone, but the truth is, they were only waiting for the sound of gratitude to open the door again. Because angels do not live where anger lives. They do not stay where arrogance speaks. They hover nearby, patient and silent, until the heart becomes soft enough for them to enter. The first sign of their return is relief. A deep, simple relief that feels like wind in a locked room. You stand still, and the silence feels alive. You can almost hear something invisible sigh in peace. Angels are drawn to purity the way light is drawn to dawn. They gather where sincerity rises. They love the fragrance of forgiveness, and they rest in the places where Allah's name is spoken with tenderness. When you cleaned your home with intention, when you asked Allah to fill it with peace, you were not just tidying rooms. You were building landing places for light. Now, the air holds that memory, and the angels find their way back easily. Sometimes they come through fragrance, the faint sweetness that has no source. Sometimes through warmth, a still room suddenly feeling kind. Sometimes through a thought that brings tears, a thought you didn't plan, a reminder that feels placed gently into your chest. That is how mercy travels. That is how angels return. They walk unseen through every room. They brush against the curtains you opened. They stand near the prayer mat you straightened. They pause by the bed where you whispered forgiveness. They do not disturb. They repair. They lift heaviness the way sunlight dries dew. Slowly, completely, without noise. You sit quietly and wonder why your heart feels lighter. You can't explain it. You just know something holy has crossed your threshold. Even the walls seem calmer. The air tastes like still water. That is the taste of presence. The Sufis used to say, when angels visit, silence feels full. Because what fills the room is not emptiness anymore. It is attention, divine attention, made gentle. The angels do not come only to bless the space. They come to bless you. They carry the traces of your repentance back to the heavens. They report the whispers you thought no one heard. They bring back the peace you lost when you thought Allah had turned away. You didn't realize it, but the moment you decided to remember again, their journey back to you had already begun. Each act of sincerity builds a bridge. Every small thank you, every quiet tear, is a signal shining upward. They follow those lights. That is why the path of remembrance is never crowded. Angels travel there constantly. They bring gifts that humans cannot buy: contentment, clarity, and gentle strength. You will notice that after they return, you react differently to the same world. The noise doesn't bother you as much. The worries look smaller. That is because protection has settled around you, unseen but solid. Sometimes you will feel it strongest right after prayer. The moment you fold your hands on your knees, there is a pause, and in that pause, the world softens. That is them, standing quietly, listening to your gratitude, guarding the peace that just arrived. They are not distant messengers, they are caretakers of the heart, and every heart that calls upon Allah sincerely has its own assigned company of light. You might remember nights when sleep felt heavy, filled with restless dreams, when even rest seemed unreachable. Then, one night, after repentance, you sleep deeply and wake before dawn feeling whole. That is not coincidence. That is protection repositioning itself. The angels have taken their places again. They do not stay only for one night. They stay as long as your remembrance continues. When you speak kindly to family, they draw closer. When you raise your hands in prayer, they gather. When you forgive, they celebrate. And when you forget, they step back, never angry, only waiting. You realize now that every moment of sincerity matters. A single word of praise can reopen the heavens above your home. A single act of gratitude can make the unseen rejoice. And a single whisper of repentance can bring an entire host of angels rushing back to guard you. This is how the unseen world answers love with presence. Even your surroundings begin to echo their calm. Plants seem greener. Light falls differently through the window. The house has the same shape, but a different soul. Because when mercy enters, matter obeys. Everything that remembers him begins to glow. You understand then why the prophet taught that purity invites angels. It's not only about ritual cleanliness. It's about the cleanliness of spirit that says, I want my Lord to feel welcome here. The moment you say that sincerely, they come running not because you deserve them, but because Allah commanded them to guard His servants who remember. When the angels return, they bring signs of balance. Things that were delayed start moving. Hearts that were cold begin to soften. You notice coincidences that are not coincidences. Timing that feels too perfect to be random. That is divine coordination, re-establishing itself. Barakah re-enters quietly. Peace becomes your normal atmosphere again. In those moments, speak gently. Every word you say inside a purified space is witnessed. Every act is magnified. Every breath becomes part of dhikr. Because when angels fill your home becomes an extension of prayer. Even silence praises then. Even sleep counts as remembrance. And so, you learn a secret. You do not have to see the angels to know they are near. You will feel them in how easily your heart forgives, in how quickly you notice gratitude again, in how natural peace feels now. That is the signature of their presence. Ease that doesn't make you lazy, lightness that doesn't fade. It was never the salt. There comes a silence after effort. The bowls are empty, the rooms are clean, the prayers have been said. You sit down, hands still wet, heart still trembling, and for the first time in a long time, there is peace. Not the kind that shouts, the kind that breathes, slow, golden, steady, and in that stillness, a whisper rises inside you. It was never the salt. All this time, you thought the cure lived in what your hands could hold. Salt for protection, mint for renewal, movement for cleansing. But the truth arrives softly, like a secret the universe has been keeping since the beginning of time. It was always Him. The salt was only a doorway, the mint only a fragrance on the path. The real change began the moment your heart turned back. The peace that fills your home now was born not from what you mixed, but from what you meant. Intention summoned mercy, sincerity called angels, and Allah responded not to your hands, but to the quiet ache that said, Ya Rab, I need you. The salt never carried power. It carried permission. Permission for your heart to remember who truly heals. The mint never purified the air. It purified your focus. Its scent was only a reflection of the new fragrance growing in your chest. Trust. You understand now. Everything you touch in faith becomes a sign, not a source, because the source has never changed. It is the same voice that told the sea to part, the same mercy that told the fire to be cool, the same gentleness that told your soul, "Come back to me." You look around the room and it feels alive. Not because of what you did, but because the one who owns light decided to enter again. And he entered the moment you surrendered the illusion that you could bring peace by your own strength. That surrender is worship. That realization is awakening. You remember how heavy the nights were before, the restless sleep, the unease, the invisible weight, and you realize the darkness was never from outside. It was the distance between you and trust. The salt only reminded you to bridge it. The mint only taught you to breathe again. But it was Allah who crossed the distance, not you. In that moment, you cry not from sadness, but from recognition. Because you finally see the truth behind every act, behind every ritual, every motion. The hands move, but He makes them move. The tongue speaks, but He gives it speech. The believer acts, but it is He who accepts. So the whisper repeats, softer this time, as if coming from inside your heartbeat. It was never the salt, it was me. You think of all the times you searched for remedies, for objects, for words, for signs, when all He wanted was your attention. The cure was hidden inside the connection, not the creation. The moment you looked to Him sincerely, the world rearranged itself in your favor. You sit still now, listening to the air that no longer feels empty. Every breath feels like a verse, every heartbeat like a prostration. This is what it means to be alive in remembrance. You whisper back, trembling, "It was always you, wasn't it?" And the heart answers before words can form, "Yes." The walls seem to echo that yes. The silence glows. The ordinary becomes sacred. You realize that faith has always been like this. Not loud, not dramatic, but a returning, a soft walk home. And the home was not these walls. It was your soul. The salt was never meant to cast away shadows. It was meant to teach you about the weight of intention. The mint was never meant to perfume your home. It was meant to remind you how purity smells when it's close to Allah. Every element of the world carries a trace of Him. The wise see beyond the element to the giver. That is the golden whisper of awakening, to see the sign and immediately look for the sender. When that happens, everything becomes worship. A glass of water, a sweep of the floor, a sigh of exhaustion all turn into prayer. When your awareness rests in the source, you realize then that the true miracle was not the cleansing of your home, but the cleansing of your perception. The salt washed away doubt. The mint revived remembrance. But it was Allah who purified your sight, so you could finally see the real healer behind the healing. You close your eyes and feel gratitude rise, pure, wordless, limitless. For the first time, you are not asking. You are simply being held by the same mercy that moves galaxies and rain. And you understand now that surrender is not weakness. It is the doorway through which all light enters. Outside, the night is quiet, but the darkness no longer feels empty. It feels inhabited by love, because where Allah's remembrance lives, even night glows softly. You look at the bowl beside you. The salt glitters under the faint lamp. The mint has begun to dry, its fragrance fading, but your faith feels new. You smile and whisper, "Thank you for using such small things to show such a big truth." The whisper answers again, this time not as a voice, but as peace itself settling into you. "The things of the earth are my messengers, but the message is always the same. Return. Return to simplicity. Return to gratitude. Return to the awareness that nothing moves without His will, and everything that does move is moving you closer to Him." And so, you finally understand the secret of all remembrance. You were never the one remembering. He remembered you first, and that remembrance pulled you back into light. That's why you found the salt. That's why you thought of mint. That's why you cleaned your home that night. He was guiding you to the act, so he could reveal himself through the result. You realize that the entire journey, the heaviness, the confusion, the decision to act, the peace afterward, was a conversation between you and your Lord. You thought you were trying to reach him, but he was the one reaching through everything to reach you. And now, look around you. The air feels different, doesn't it? The silence that once frightened you now feels warm. The same walls that echoed your sorrow now carry peace. The same night that used to feel heavy now feels alive with mercy. You didn't summon light. You remembered it. You see now, it was never the salt, never the mint, never the ritual. They were only the mirrors that showed you what was hiding inside your heart all along. Faith. The real cleansing happened within you, not around you. Allah didn't need your hands to move. He needed your heart to return. And when it did, everything else followed. The peace, the clarity, the angels. You were never alone in that darkness. He was there, watching quietly, waiting for the moment your soul would whisper his name again. The shadows were not punishment. They were reminders. They weren't sent to break you. They were sent to bring you back to the one who never left. And now, your home breathes again. Your heart listens again. The unseen stands guard again. Not because of the salt in your hands, but because of the surrender in your chest. Every breeze that passes through your window now carries his remembrance. Every breath you take is a verse you didn't know you were reciting, and the same angels who once stood outside have taken their place beside you. Not because you called them, but because you called him. So, when the night feels heavy again, don't rush to fix the air. Fix the silence. Don't rush to light candles. Light remembrance, because the cure was never physical. It was always spiritual. The next time you hold salt in your hand, remember the secret. The world itself is powerless without the permission of the one who made it. And every miracle you've ever witnessed was never yours. It was his mercy answering your whisper. This is the golden truth the saints lived by. Every sign in this world is only a shadow of his love. And when you follow the shadow, you find the source. So, sleep tonight with peace. Let the air settle softly around you. The heaviness is gone because remembrance has returned. And if your heart trembles in gratitude, know this. The trembling is a prayer. The tears are a form of dhikr. The silence after it all is the sound of your soul finally at rest. You did not purify your home tonight. Allah purified you, and that is why the light returned.